Alright guys, Michael Forrest here at Forrest State Trucks, Chrome Shop Mafia, and here's the man everybody knows, Bryan, Bossman Martin. So, our first project in this truck is we gotta get this front end down to where it's looking respectable. I mean, come on.
Not only does it set tall, but look at the wheel gap on this thing. I mean, I could almost dive through there. So we're gonna lower the front end. We're not gonna use an off-the-shelf airbag deflate kit. We're gonna keep it kind of on a budget, but our goal is to get this fender down here right at the top of this tire, still give it plenty of room for all the steering geometry to work correctly, but not break the bank and also not take 24 hours worth of install labor.
Yeah, we wanna try to get this, be able to get this job in and out in a day and have a reliable, good driving, good feeling suspension up front without any compromises of anything else.
Catch that hood strap. We'll go ahead and take a look under here and see what we're up against. Ready?
Yep. All right guys, so here we got our front end. As you can see, it's just a standard 3-leaf leaf spring, no airbags, no air ride factory. Kind of looking at some of the components we got in here. See some stuff we can change, and we can shave some height off of this, get it down here where we want.
You know, I got 2 or 3 ideas myself that might just work.
Yeah.
All right. We better get started and get this thing in the air then.
Let's do it. So before we begin any work, I want to take some preliminary measurements from the ground to this fender opening right here so we can see what kind of changes we're going to make. 44.5 on this side, 44 3/4. All right, so looking at lowering the front end of this truck, the first thing I see is we have extra long shackles up here on the front. I know they make shorter ones, so we can put some on here. We can probably lower this front end 1 to 2 inches with that alone. So that'd be the first thing I tackle on here. I'm going to remove this stop right here off the suspension because we won't be able to get any lower with this on here. This is a little module for the ABS, but it'll still be totally functional. I'm just getting it out of the way. All right, got that bump stop out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and take off the U-bolts holding this top perch of the axle to the leaf springs, separate the axle, and get that block out of there. That'll save us 1 inch right there. And I may even flip this shock mount up on top to give us a little bit more room. Got a plan to put a shorter shock on here, so that's not going to be an issue. So let me go ahead and get a socket, and I'll buzz those bolts loose. We'll need that. Let me get that out of there. Get the stack of blocks out of there. Nice. Now we can start working on some more of it. All right, in order to get that shock mount off and swap the sides up on top, gotta get the spring center bolt out, and that bolt runs from the bottom through all the springs and that shock mount up to here, and the head of that bolt goes into this hole on the axle, and that's actually what indexes the axle so it can't move front to back or even slide side to side. I'm going to try to clamp these together, the front and back, so I take that bolt out of there. These springs don't try to slide apart, and don't leave me trying to force align all the holes again. Hopefully I can take that bolt out, take the shock mount off each side, and then reinsert it. So the head of that spring center bolt is just a round, big, tall, flat head. There's no hex or anything on it. Now I've got to move this shock mount to the passenger side and bring the passenger side to one over here because it's going to get mounted like this. Obviously my shock end is facing inside the frame on this side, so I can't use this driver's side on the driver's side. So let me go ahead and just take this section over here. That's not right in line with the springs. I won't be able to get my U-bolts around it very well. Keep that parallel and right in line with them. Alright, there's one down. Okay, I'm going to lift this up and see where this gap wants to be. I may need to put another block underneath that. I'm going to leave about 3/4 inches of travel in there. And I've got 3.5 inches. I think I'll leave that right there. I'll just measure this out for a U-bolt. Alright, so I'm going to use one of the old bolts just to put in here to get a measurement for how short my new ones need to be. I don't ever want to reuse U-bolts, so I'm just going to take this original one, drop it in, and then see how much shorter I need to be. And I really don't need to shorten it up too much at all. I can go 1 inch shorter. That'll leave me 3 inches of thread out here. I'm gonna go to our U-bolt manufacturer down here and have some new U-bolts made. All right, I don't have the U-bolts on here yet, but I'm gonna try to change these shackles. Maybe I can keep enough weight on the springs to not lose its alignment. Should be able to do that. Those are surely metric. Now my hanger's on the frame here, or laying on the floor, and I can get my shackles put onto the pins and then move the whole thing back up into place. Well, right there you can see how much we're dropping. We're about 3 inches here at the shackle. Now down up here at the axle, it's only be about half that distance because the axle is falling about halfway across the length of the spring. So we're gonna fall about where we want to. I'm gonna have to just leave this one hanging off here until I can get the other side off and then bring them both up together. All right, so before I can bolt the axle down to the spring, I've got this caster shim that I need to get reinserted in here. So I need to lower the axle down and slide these shims in from the front. This is gonna set the angle of the kingpin in relation to the road, and then I can tighten the U-bolts. I'll make fun of my paint job here. It'll get painted again. Now I just gotta torque these U-bolts, 350 foot-pounds. This is a critically important part. I will say don't trust your impact to torque these down, regardless of what it's rated for. There, last one. Whew. This is like the hottest part of the job. All right, so before I set this thing on the ground, I need to measure for shocks because the shocks we took off of here would be way too short since I moved this lower shock mount from the bottom of the spring pack up to the top. So I mean, I lost 3 to 4 inches of height there. So I'm gonna need to figure out what my compressed length of the shock is and what the extent is of the shock, extended length. Because this is, obviously there's some weight on this axle, but I don't know how far it's gonna go before it stops moving by itself. So for compressed length, I'm just gonna take the length of center to center there. Just, we're 16 and a half. But I've also got 3 inches of more compression to go, so 13 and a half would be the closest this gets. So we're probably gonna look for a shock around 12 inches compressed length. Now I'm gonna release the stops on the jacks and let this axle hang and see what this tries to extend out to. All right, so now the axle, all the weight's hanging off the spring. And I'm about 18 inches now, so we'll probably look for a shock that goes, you know, maybe 19 inches, just to make sure that that shock is not what's gonna be stopping anything from moving. So we'll look for a shock with these size of bushings and 12 to about 19 inch from compressed to extended length. So we'll go to our catalogs and see what we can find. All right, so we got the front end back on the ground, and we found a shock from Bulldog HD Shocks. This is a massive shock. This is gonna help this front end ride really good. It's got enough length extended and compressed. So we'll get it set back here on the studs. Now, that looks good on there. It's going to work. I think we'll probably go ahead and paint this too. We're going to have some other stuff painted, so I think we'll just throw this in the mix and have them paint this chassis color, and then get these mounted on here for the final time. That should let this front end ride really smooth with a hard working shock in here. All right, so we got the front end back on the ground, and just standing back here, I can see that we made a major improvement. It doesn't look like it's running uphill like it used to. We'll close the hood down, and we'll take some measurements and see what we lost here. Yeah, that's what we wanted. That axle is up even a little higher than in center of the wheel opening on the hood. Looks like we're about 2 inches maybe from the top. And this is no air ride. This has still got the full effect of the leaf springs in place. So let's see, we went from 44 and a half to about 41 and 3/4. There we lost 2 3/4 of height. It don't seem like very much, but that sure makes this front end look a whole lot better.